You are listening to the Independent Dealer Podcast with hosts Luke Godwin and Jeff Watson.
Hello and welcome to the Independent Dealer Podcast brought to you by Buckeye Dealership Consulting. Luke, another great installment of our How I Built This series. This is a friend of mine, Mr. Jason Berry. He's on the Utah Board of Directors with me, and I'm blown away, man. Jason, thanks for joining us. Tell everybody, because how old are you, Jason?
Just turned 33 in March.
Oh, my. What a baby.
He's got a full head of hair, man. He looks great.
I am losing it over here.
Yeah. Not like Jeff. Not like Jeff.
Decade in the industry. Jason, so your dealership called Action Auto, you're up in Northern Utah. For the audience listening, give us kind of the scope of your business model. Like, what are your typical cars? How many do you carry? What's your goal for sales, employees? Give us kind of an idea of the scope of where you are now. And then I'd like to rewind back to your origins and talk about how you got to where you are now.
Cool. So 2 locations, only about 15 minutes apart from each other. I have one in Lehi, Utah, one in Orem, Utah. And then I have 2 offsite overflow locations. We carry right in between like 550 up to like 600 cars in inventory. Typically about 30% of those is in the reconditioning process. So we hover around like 400 to 450 on the front line at any given time. 2 locations, 550 to 600 in inventory. Most of the locations are about 1.5 acres to 2 acres per location, and then we want to stock on site about 150 per location, and have about, I think we have 46 employees right now at the dealership, including reconditioning, sales, F&I. The structure consists of 6 F&I agents, and then straight to the sales floor where we have 12 agents, 6 per store. We typically have 5 to 6 agents on the sales floor, 3 full-time F&I guys.
Wow.
And how many cars you sell in a month?
We're anywhere from 200 to 230 a month is typically where we're at, and that's retail units. And then we have some wholesale. We do a lot of wholesale just based on our inventory. We have a lot of like late model stuff that we'll wholesale. Retail, wholesale on top.
I want everybody to stop for a second because, Jason, 47 employees doing the volume you're doing, that is, I think, incredible. You're getting every ounce of workmanship out of each employee. I mean, I could do a whole podcast on how great that is. Because I'm sure at some point you've had a lot more employees than that, right?
Yeah, the most we've ever had is I think like 50. I kind of take a lot of pride in running really, really lean and efficient.
Yeah.
Whether that's reconditioning or the sales floor or not having a desk manager or a sales manager or something like that, but really delegating clear lines of responsibility to each person and then building a process around it.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible.
So did I miss this part? But your business model, is it like subprime CAC? Or are you doing all prime? Is it like I make $2 on the front end and then like another 2,000 on the points, or what's your business model? Yeah,
so we are heavy on the back end. So we are a volume dealership, obviously. We are pretty heavily focused on back end penetration, ancillary products, stuff like that. Our margins are decent actually on the front end, but I think a lot has to contribute to how efficient our reconditioning process. I always say the money's made in the buy and lost in your process. So we're pretty efficient in the reconditioning process, and we're pretty controlled, which obviously promotes a higher gross margin on the front end. We do very little subprime. I would actually like to get a little bit more into subprime. I think right now we're seeing a lot of subprime customers, just I think due to the climate of how the business is trending. A lot of, I think, prime credit customers are kind of holding back and not needing to take a move. And there's this subprime presence right now in the market that seems to be pretty consistent. So we're actively working on, we do have CAC, Cap One, Ally, and stuff like that. So we're actually actively working on maybe a little bit deeper subprime.
And so when you say money's lost in the process,
yeah,
just to touch on this and we'll come back to it, but you have a recon process, right? What's your connection with Karketta? How, because I saw that all over your website and I've heard you talk about it. What's the connection there with you and that?
Yeah, so I am the co-founding president of Carketa. So it actually, the product was developed inside of our dealership, the needing to scale, right, and control processes. So yeah, that's really what we set out to do is create a really streamlined, robust recon process to get your cars to the front line in the most controlled manner possible, but time is money, right? Fast. So it was really built out of a necessity. I work a lot on the product side. And yeah, it just is a complete suite from appraisal. We have live market data. We have reconditioning. So we help buy, recondition the vehicles and then hand off a sales packet to the sales team is primarily where we live. And yeah, I'm still very active in that company. I spend actually a good majority of my time at Carketta now.
Wow.
That's, I mean, wow. And he's 33 years old, Jeff. What did we do wrong?
A good percentage of my 2 hours a day that I work. So Jason, so now that the listeners have the scope of what you've got going on, locations, employees, the Karketta thing happening, let me rewind back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And stop me if I'm wrong here, because I've only heard parts of conversations that you said. Did you used to be a lane wrangler at the auctions? Because I vaguely remember your face running around a car at Brazier's Salt Lake. Did you work at Brazier's Salt Lake?
I did. Yeah, that's originally where I started. So do you want me to just dive into kind of how I built up?
Let's do it. Dive in.
Cool. Yeah, so my dad is actually an auctioneer. So my uncle and my dad have been in the business for quite a while. My dad specifically on the wholesale side, he's actually still an auctioneer, really great one at that. But he sent me to be an auctioneer in between my junior and senior year of high school. So I went up to Montana to go to a 2-week course to become an auctioneer in between my junior and senior year of high school. And I graduated from that. The day after I turned 18, my dad got me a job at the auction as what'd you call it? A lane wrangler?
Yeah. Well, what's the official term?
Yeah.
Our job.
Ringman.
Yeah. So I was a ringman. I started out as a ringman when I was 18. I kind of worked my way up to being actually an auctioneer from the time I was like maybe 19, 20, 21. So my schedule was I worked at Odessa in Salt Lake on Tuesday. Wednesday, I went to Manheim, Utah, worked there. And then I flew to Phoenix on Thursdays. I worked at Phoenix, and then I would bum a ride from Phoenix to Vegas every week, and then I'd work at Manheim, Las Vegas on Fridays. And that was kind of my route. And I did that from the time I was 18 till I slowly transitioned out. Starting the dealership when I was 22, fully transitioned out of the wholesale side of the industry when I was like maybe 23. So I was actually running the dealership from very infancy stages alongside with auctioneering from like 22 to 23.
That's helpful. He's auctioneering and bidding at the same time. sold action.
It just happened to sell to this number in the crowd.
I tell you, I grew up in auctions. Our family's been in business 38 years. And so, I mean, I think the first time I ever went to an auction, I mean, I was probably like 7, 8 years old, right? And I probably bought my first car at 12. So I can see how being an auctioneer or being a ringman, I mean, you kind of figure it out, right? I mean, is that how the bug got you?
Yeah, I mean, I was blessed to really learn like the wholesale side of the industry very, very well. Obviously, that's super important in running a dealership eventually. But yeah, I always I worked at the auction. Like the auction only lasts till like noon, right? So I wanted something to do post the auction. So I actually went and got a job at a dealership for 2 years. Pretty successful dealership up here in Utah, actually really successful. I think they're one of the larger dealerships in Utah. But I got a job there doing sales and finance after my auction gig, and I did that for about 2 years. So I learned the wholesale side of the industry really, really well. And then I also got the opportunity to learn the retail side of the industry from some pretty awesome people in the industry.
What was the catalyst, or what sparked the idea to open your own dealership and get your own license and open your own place? Was that something your dad recommended, or was that you just seeing these guys making more money than you were making, or like what?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
So my dad's a little of all of that, right? My dad's always been a business owner. A lot of people don't know, but he owns actually a couple of pretty successful flooring stores in Utah as well. But he's always been a business owner. I always dreamed of being a business owner, an entrepreneur. I've kind of been that way my whole life. I love, like, when the ball falls on me. I love building businesses. So I knew pretty early on that I kind of wanted an education, which eventually would transition into probably me starting my own dealership. And it was when I was like 23, I guess, 22, 23. Is when I leased my first location and started the dealership, just super humble, really small. Started out with, I always say, like 10 grand in my pocket and a line of credit is really kind of what I started the dealership with. Really ghetto cars, like what I could buy, at the time. And I still have pictures back in like 2013 of like 5 cars on the lot, Mm-hmm. And I started, that's where I started. I saw these guys living pretty luxurious lives in Vegas as dealers.
Yeah, I bet.
So I wanted some of that. And that's basically where it started.
Okay, so you're 23. You were an auctioneer for 5 years, and that's a rough life. You got to do it early, right? Because I mean that's a lot of traveling. It's auctioneers kind of like to have a big time. I get it. I've hung out with probably too many of them. And so you're 23. You open this lot. Did you have an idea of how big you wanted to grow then, or was it just, what, if I can go out and sell 20, 30 cars a month, I'm gonna make a good living. I'm gonna have fun. Or was it like, what, I'm gonna have multiple locations? What was the initial thought process there?
Yeah, initial thought process is I was like, obviously it's always scary taking a gamble, starting your own business, but I was pretty confident. I was like, oh, if I can just sell like 10, 15 cars a month, like I'm good, right? So it originally started with like that 10, 15 car a month goal. Which then just led to, like, as you see the wheel of success and you're selling and selling and selling and selling, I think it just kind of builds momentum. And yeah, we won an award 4 years in a row for fastest growing companies in Utah Valley. And it just kind of steamrolled. I got addicted to selling and success, and everyone's really excited. I ended up buying my first location that I developed and still have, my Lehigh store, only 2 years after I started the dealership. So originally it was like, if I can just sell 10, 15 cars, and then just, I guess, got addicted to growth and just kept going.
Hey guys, just real quick to interrupt the podcast. Want to make sure you guys know about Buckeye Dealership Consulting. Obviously, sponsor the podcast for a long time now, and a great place for your reinsurance, all of your CPIs and CFIs and all those acronyms.
Yeah, all the acronyms make you extra money. And like we were talking about during the episode, how back-end products mean so much to buy here, pay here dealerships. They mean so much to retail dealerships. Jeff, if you're not selling your own back-end products, you are losing so much money. And for that matter, if you're not selling back-end products, period, you're losing so much money. Mm-hmm. So get with Buckeye, get your reinsurance company set up, sell these back-end products, make more money during the sale, and make more money years down the road.
So it gives me so many questions, but the first one is, if someone's listening to this and they're in the same situation, they're a 23-year-old with a dealership, like you remember the one guy that was at the convention with us, like totally. Can you share with us, like, how do you physically, like, hey, Mr. Bank, I've got 2 years in existence and I want you to give me a $3 million loan to build my own dealership. Or, hey, Mr. Bank, I want you to give me a $5 million line of credit because I want to floor 600 cars, like Ferraris, Lamborghinis. Like,
so, yeah, funny story about that, actually. So I've always been really, really conservative and lived kind of by the principle of it's easier to have too much money than not enough. Where I was very, very frugal, paid myself very little money. Funny story is I actually went to my bank to get my first loan to start my dealership. And essentially what happened is I went to Chase Bank, tried to get a loan, couldn't actually get a loan. Funny story is I actually had more money in the bank than what I was actually trying to pull out at the time. And they declined me because I didn't have the 2 years in business. I wasn't established. And yeah, so I got declined, but my dad had actually a connection over, I don't know if you guys are aware or familiar with Rock Canyon Bank, but my dad had a friend over at Rock Canyon Bank and said, hey, take a look at his financials. He's doing good. He has money in the bank. And I think because my dad had a little bit of a track record with them, they were willing to take a gamble on me. Obviously, I had to put up my house and everything else to kind of make the deal happen. But yeah, I was able to purchase my first location that I ended up developing in 2015. It was just a ghetto house on an acre that me and my wife stripped it down and basically like turned it into a sales office. And then we sold off dirt for 6 months until we could afford to put asphalt down. Basically, is how that went.
Our first location was the ghetto house. I mean, exactly the same. And so I remember that. And we finally knocked it down about 15 years in business and redid one of our shops. So there's always ways to get ahead, right? And I love that principle of, pay yourself nothing to get ahead, right? That's how you build businesses.
Yeah, but then you're also willing to take the risk to put what you have built and set aside. Like very few of us, I mean, well, most of us probably have personal guarantees on any lines we have, but
everything,
to go second your home, if you have to have that kind of faith to be like, yeah, I'm going to take out a second mortgage on my house to get the money I need to put into the dealership because I trust myself, because I know I'm going to be successful. I'm going to make this work. Sometimes it's easy to just go out there and be like, oh, I'm going to get a bank line of credit or an SBA loan that has no recourse personally past my home. And then if I fail, oh, well, different mentality.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely scary, but I fortunately had built like a pretty decent team at that time. So I had a lot of confidence in what we could do as a team, which obviously was super helpful. I had my cousin that was working doing F&I there, and we were doing well at the time. I think we were turning like 100, and, obviously as you're a smaller dealership, you can turn a higher percentage of your inventory. But at the time, I mean, we were turning like 100%, 110, 120% of our inventory every month because we were small and we could control it, So we had really great momentum. In 2015 was my first purchase. We ran that finally ended up developing and finishing the development with asphalt and everything in about late 2016. And then 2017, it seems like pretty consistently I make a jump about every 2 years. And then 2016, we finished the construction like fully. And then I heard of a dealership that was wanting to sell the Orem location in 2017. And essentially what happened is a dealership that was running it was actually an old Hyundai store that there was a guy that purchased it, and he was kind of running it like a mechanic shop, not doing super well, didn't have a strong sales presence, and it's right on State Street. It's a big, beautiful location. But essentially he was a little bit in hot water, and I heard of the opportunity through one of my Mannheim reps. And 2017, I actually did like a short-term lease on a little location in Orem for like 3 or 4 months, kind of set up shop down there and purchased the second store in 2017, which used to be, I think it was Murdoch Hyundai.
So, Jason, I want to go back to you talked about your team and you mentioned your cousin. That's what I need help with that. I need you to tell me how, as a 23, 24-year-old at the time, how did you attract talent that was obviously, I mean, you must have some killers. You must have some just absolute, salesman to scale that quickly and still be doing the volume you do with such a lean staff? Like, talk to me about that, your staff and how you attracted top talent.
Yeah. That's interesting because I've always been, it was my cousin that came back. He had just come back from mission. We all know return missionaries are probably good salesmen, right? But yeah,
they'll talk to anybody.
yeah, right. And they're just super nice, super polite, good vibe about them, right? But yeah, I have to give a lot of credit to my team, to my cousin. My wife has always been like a foundation supporter. She did accounting, which then led into the title department, and she did, so I have a lot of really great support around me. I think recruiting's always been, I've always been able to sell a vision and then be able to, I feel like, execute on the vision. So I think you just kind of build a momentum and a track record around what you are and what you're doing. And social media has always actually been a big part of our recruiting process. We always wanted to promote the people that work within the dealership, make it a fun environment to work with, unlimited swag at Action Auto, like just tons of company pride, which I think makes the recruiting process and attracting top talent really easy. Take care of your people, if they're doing well, you're going to do well. And I always made sure that I focused on making sure that my team was doing really well, whether that's pay plans, fun, happiness, like was always top of mind for me because I always felt like if they were happy, we were going to perform well.
How do you, I could see how people could see your vision. You're charismatic, people see you're successful. And you talk about wanting people to have fun in your dealership. How do you balance people having fun and people doing their jobs? Because sometimes I think some of us end up in an issue there. Have you learned something that maybe you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I think fun is generated by like success as a company, right? Like you always want to have, you always want to be fun. You always want to like, but you want to also have like really tight structure, like if there's an expectation of we're here from this time to this time, we do that, make it as fun as possible while being there. But always, I think creating a model and paid plans and everything that sets the long-term vision up for success is so important because if you have clear vision and you have clear goals of where you want to be and you architect a model around getting there, you're always successful, right? And if you're hitting those benchmarks to get there, you're always successful, which if everyone's hitting their goals, everyone's having a lot of fun, right? Yeah,
that's so important. Yes, hitting goals is fun. But people have to know that they have to do their job in the process of that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, looking at your Instagram, it looks like you've got a bunch of like clean cut chads, and a bunch of like gym bros that are probably just freaking like slinging cars, making 10 grand a month, spending it all on protein and freaking
like pre-workout protein, the basic
side by sides. The reason I dig into that so much is I do think that you look at some of these dealerships that have this crazy trajectory, right? We have a bunch of friends in the industry that just rocket ships, right? But it's a culture. It's such an interesting, like lightning in a bottle culture that obviously comes down from the owner, which apparently I have none of that because that's like, I am like snail's pace. You're talking about like 3 years ago, shiz was like going crazy and you're scaling. I'm like, I don't think I'm not even sure I've changed the carpet here in 7 years. I don't know that anything's changed.
Sharp. We've all seen it.
It's been business as usual. We haven't hit any kind of a milestone. Like I've sold 40 cars for the last 14 years. Like, and I'm trying to do more, but I'm just like, it's like this roof that I have, which is of course my problem. And so we don't even talk about this. This is about you. But anyways, that inspires me hearing that to say, wow, yeah, having the right team And I'm guessing you don't have a lot of Karens laying around your dealership. Like, you seem to have a pretty like energetic, like,
Yeah.
we're going to go tear the wheels off this thing and sell it type of a crew. So hopefully you guys listened to our episode from last week with the Unfair Advantage Automotive Mastermind Group. August 3rd, guys, just to remind you, get signed up, be there in the Carolinas, come in the day early and spend the day with Tracy and Troy and just have a great time learning.
Yeah, unfairadvantagemastermind.com. And there's a clock ticking there, 54 days, 18 hours, right? That's what it's saying right now. I'm going to try to be there. And I've been in one of these masterminds with those two guys. And it's not even just about that meeting. The people you meet during that meeting, Tracy has been just a benefit forever for me. I've probably known him 15 years. He's always there to help me. Troy as well. They're just a good bunch of guys. Get there, have fun, stay for the convention as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, super passionate about. I've actually hired very little people from other dealerships. I've always brought in new talent, fresh into the industry that we can kind of mold around our culture and the way that we do things. So that's one thing that I was super passionate about is making sure that we build the culture within the side of the people, and we don't bring a lot of like past experience,
bad habits.
Yeah, from outside the industry, right?
Do you prescribe to any sales training system, or do you have your own?
Yeah, I mean, we listen to a lot of podcasts. We watch a lot of YouTube videos. I've never actually subscribed to like a formal sales training, which
got like full-size pictures of Grant Cardone in the office.
Yeah. No, I listened to a lot of their stuff, a lot of Grant Cardone, a lot of like the way they do things. And I feel like you can learn something from someone, whether it's what you want to do or what you don't want to do. But I love a lot of his content. I have listened to a lot of it, but there's a lot of really great free content out there on YouTube, specifically for sales.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and for detailing and for all kind of stuff, and you can really use a lot of that to train on. I like that.
And when you have a team that's driven, they're driven to do better. They use those tools, right? It's like, sure, you got an old dog that'll sit back and sell 10 cars a month for the rest of his life, but do you have someone who wants to get to 15 or 20 or 30 a month, and they're going to go out and use those tools to get better and better and better. That's the key, is you've created the culture. We all know the tools are there. Every, freaking stalled out lot knows that. You have somehow got your team to buy in. They're like, hey, we're going to use these tools and we're going to be ruthless. We're going to get better. That's awesome. Jason, let me ask you, just to transition off that for a second, the Karketta thing. So we mentioned in the beginning that that's a large portion of your time and energy. Give us the scale, or give us the goal. We know you have a partnership with NIADA, right? I think for the CPO program. That's a huge accomplishment. I mean, that's got to be huge. Like, what? Obviously,
I want to know kind of how he built that.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. So how that happened is, how I talk about like every 2 years, right? It's kind of when I make another leap. So after 2017, I had opened the other store, and I was really struggling with like maintaining a process around delivering that many cars to the front line. And we struggled along, kind of limped along, but we were kind of capped out at, we couldn't do more than like 120, 130-ish cars a month between both locations. And we were really tapped out there. And a big majority of our problem was the amount of cars that we could deliver to the front line in a quality manner. We could deliver them to the front line, but they may have bald tires, or they may have a chipped windshield, or whatever, right? So it was 17, and then we started actually developing, it was actually one of my finance managers at my Orem store that I was like, hey man, we need to come up with some sort of process to solve this. And we're like, well, should we start a business? And we did. So literally that was like what we did. We went and he had a contact over to a guy that developed websites for him, So in 2019, we kind of started like chipping away at building this process around delivering reconditioned units to the front line, right? And then we also wanted to present like some sort of like presentation. If I'm going to invest in the reconditioning process of my vehicle, I want something to show the customer that says, hey, we did tires, we did a windshield, we did an oil change. Like, this is why it makes sense to do business with Action, because we follow this process, right? So we started out with a reconditioning process and a digital CR. And yeah, me and him, you know, he did F&I, and we kind of developed alongside, where he eventually moved out full time to running Karketta, and then I would buy in the morning and then leave right after buying and go work on Karketta. And that started in 2019. And I actually have another F&I guy in my finance office at my arm store that his dad was connected to like venture capital, and we were just having a conversation about what we were building. He was a really successful guy, and we were like, what do you think about this idea and what we're doing? He's like, you guys need to go. He's like, if you're going to do this, you need to raise a round of funding, and you need to go with it. And we did. I mean, and so it was 2020, actually, like right when COVID happened. We pitched pre 2020, and then like right after. You remember when everything fell apart in March? It was like April when we were like seeking this round of funding, and we had already pitched these investors in San Francisco, connected through one of my good friend's dad, actually. And we were able to land our first round of funding, which was a pre-seed in 2020. It was like April of 2020, after we had flew out to San Francisco. And yeah, it was just off to the races from there. Crosslink Capital was actually our first investor out of the Bay Area. And yeah, I mean, we just have been chipping away at it. Software is definitely not an overnight success type thing. It's cash intensive. You oftentimes have to upfront commissions for sales reps, you know, out of like the hope that the customer is going to retain on the platform, and they're going to see value. But yeah, and we've been going at that since 2020, and have since raised another round of funding. It was 2021, I believe, which I think was actually one of the larger rounds of funding for a seed round company in Utah. And we just scaled. I think at the time we've got up to around, we've fully onboarded about 700 dealerships onto the platform. Obviously you have churn and not a good fit for people, that type of thing, but right around like 300-400 dealerships a month or run their dealership processes on Karketta.
Where do you see this going, Jason? I mean, that's pretty big. I mean, what's your end game with this? Is it a IPO? Is it just a big software company just for automobiles? Or I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Once you start down the VC path, like I think that's kind of like the route of the company, is you either IPO or you sell off to a big company eventually. But right now I'm just heads down. We actually rebuilt the product as of we started in about November. We hired a really great team, brought on a CEO, brought on a new CTO, and just kind of built a team for the next level evolution of Karketta, which they've done a really great job. And we rebuilt the product starting in November. And we're going to hard launch our new product at NIADA later this month, which we're really excited about. And yeah, I think right now it's just build a company, build a company, don't focus on selling, anything like that. Just build a really successful company. And I think naturally people want to come along and probably buy, or you carry it up to IPO. But right now it's just build a company, onboard as many dealerships as possible. We feel like there's a pretty underserved market, specifically in independents, where we can bring a tremendous amount of value, from appraisal to reconditioning to everything. We can serve those independent dealerships on a wide scale is our focus right now.
So I want to know about so it's public knowledge. So I'm going to bring this up. You haven't said it, but it's online. So it looks like you were like maybe 1.4 in your first one, and then 6 million in this most recent seed round.
Yep.
Total of 7.4 million raised since this was put out. How much were you able to, at some point, did you get a cash out in a pre-seed? Like, did you retain ownership? Did you get diluted? Like, what were you able to keep your hands on?
Yeah. So anytime you raise a round of funding, you do suffer dilution. So that's why you kind of try and get it as far and as high as you can before you raise the next round of funding. So yeah, I mean, we definitely suffered dilution. I'm actually still on a vesting schedule. Those are worked into the terms of the round of funding. Typically, you don't take chips off the table till maybe like a later A round or B round or something like that. I fortunately am not interested in taking any chips off the table. I'm very confident in what we're building and the team that we have built over here at Karketta. We have some really, really great people, senior engineers, devs, CX, marketing. We've built a really stacked team that I'm fully invested.
But the real win, I mean, as a car dealer and like straight to straight, like the real win from a SaaS company is, an IPO or an A round or something, right? Where that's where you're going to say, okay, this is, because those are life-changing valuations. You build up a dealership and you have really good cash flow and you could build it to a good lifestyle business, but there is no exit. There's no multiple on our dealerships when we exit. But a SaaS company and you retain, 20% ownership or something, and that thing IPOs, that's life-changing.
That's life. Yeah. That's generational wealth.
Hey, y'all, real quick. Want to make sure you know about Primalend, great sponsor of the podcast. And, we talk about scaling with this episode, and Jason, it does take money. You can slow grow, and it's important to have some slow growth, but when you need to scale or when you need to step it up, you want to make sure you have a lender in place so that you can take advantage of those opportunities, right?
You can't do anything without cash. Even, talking about building this other business, you got to have cash to grow. Primalend is just a partner with the car industry. It's people like that can help you get ahead. They can help you with questions. They can help you with money. They can help you buy locations. Like Jason said, he couldn't get a loan on his first building that he wanted to buy, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's where somebody like Primalend comes along. What's more fun, selling cars or doing this?
Fixing widgets.
Yeah, making widgets. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like that's what I'm doing is making a bunch of widgets, but no. So that's a great question. I really, really love the car business. I love being able to buy fun cars, sell fun cars. I mean, every day we get to buy a new car that like potentially it was like our dream car, like,
yeah.
So I love that
2013 Ford Fusion that I bought yesterday.
Maybe
I'm in the wrong industry, bro. Come on, give me a break.
That's also culture building. I didn't hit on that, but I've always had a collection of really fun cars that I let the sales team and everyone experience. So that's been part of the culture building. But yeah, to answer your question, what's funner? I don't know. I really love, I've been able to fortunately live a lot on the product side of the software building. So I'm actually creating a lot of solutions and new products that will help both me and dealerships across. So I really like both. I'm really having a lot of fun. Obviously, the more successful you have and the people you surround yourself with oftentimes determine how fun things are. And fortunately, we have a great team, and I'm really excited about it.
Whenever I get into a new software, I can always tell if it was developed by a car dealer or developed by some computer guy, right? Yeah. You can just tell by user experience, by flow, by features, the best stuff is developed by car dealers.
Yeah.
And then the fire is fueled by venture capital, right? It's like, and a lot of car dealers build good stuff. They just don't have the money to make it big. And then there's other guys who are programmers and venture capitalists, and they build stuff and it's big, but it's not really that user friendly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what's actually been really sweet. Before this, I was actually transitioning from our legacy product over to the new product. So I'm taking our 500 cars in inventory, I'm updating all the statuses of where they are, and I'm making the transition actually over this weekend. So I can run it really hard and perfect everything for, you know, the ongoing future. But it's so critical to have power users and people that are really invested in using the new platform, because I would like to think I have really great ideas, but I don't have all the eyes, right?
Personally, do you feel like you're taking your eye off the ball? Like, I look at other projects and sometimes I see shiny objects and I'm like, oh, it'd be really fun to develop a, you know, maybe something close. Like maybe I should own a repo company in an impound yard. Maybe I should own a separate repair shop that does retail work, or maybe I should get into raising like exotic llamas or something. Like, do you ever feel like you're taking your eye off the ball? Do you worry about the dealership when you're over here playing with Karketta?
Yeah, I've definitely had to get really, really great at running the dealership remote. Like, but not only running the dealership remote, I have some pretty key players in the dealership that are really good. I've been able to fortunately offload a lot of my daily like stress to, and kind of you kind of have to just like take your hands off and say, here guys, here's the process, here's what you need to do. And then always be there to support them, obviously, if they need help. But yeah, I mean, definitely do. I think the dealership, I could have it at 3 locations and, you know, maybe 4 locations at this point, maybe, but I'm also having a lot of fun running the software company. But I definitely don't think the dealership is struggling, just because I think I do have really good people in place and really good levers to pull, right? Like, you need to know where your points or your KPIs are and what levers you need to have in place.
Do those people at the dealership, do any of them have equity ownership, or are they all salaried? Those kind of key guys that keep the ball rolling for you.
Yeah, so they're all salary, but they all, like, our pay plans have always been pretty rich. So I mean, they definitely have the opportunity to make really good money, which obviously I think keeps and retains good people. And I also you know, we've entertained the ideas of like co-investing and forward-thinking things. And I probably, with some of the key people, will co-invest in rental properties or something like that with them.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Idea. And do you find more joy buying a car or buying a horse? Because I know you've bought some horses as well, right?
Yeah, so horses, it's a big problem right now. I have way too many. No, I'm really passionate about it. My dad like really loves racehorses, which obviously that trickled down to me. And yeah, now we have a lot of racehorses and mares and babies, and that's really fun hobby. Don't count on it to make a living, that's for sure. But it's a great hobby and we have a lot of fun with it, and it's a really good time. Family's really important to me. And I get to spend a lot of time with my dad, and my kids love it, and they come see the horse all the time. My wife, questionable, don't know if she loves it too much, but she likes the babies, I guess.
Yeah, sounds like one of those tax deduction hobbies, right? Like
I've always been very confused with that one too. Like, is that justification? Is it really like a good tax write-off? Like, I struggled with that one, but.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Jason, real quick, before we wrap this up, give us advice for dealers that are in your, you know, maybe they're 10 years ago in your story, you know, they're 23, 25, maybe they're 55 and they're just starting their dealership out. Any advice or like input or words of wisdom that you would share with guys that are either building or stagnated, you know, like me, that need to go to that maybe want to take it to the next level?
I've always been really, really, really passionate about, like I said, being super frugal and being super strategic on spend. I've seen a lot of dealerships that that will like build a business up and they're going good, and then they got a ton of a big flooring line, and they floor a lot of cars. And I always keep that ratio of floored cars, cash in the bank, and equity in vehicles very in line, because this is a very cash intensive business. Building a really solid foundation of equity in the business, I think, is really, really super important. That was something I was super passionate about, is making sure that we built a ton of equity into what we were doing. So we never, I always kind of ran things like, if I ever had to pay off or write a check for the flooring line, like I always could, you know. And I kind of scaled cash and flooring line up together. That was just, and I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that was something I was passionate about. I never wanted to be personally worried about ever going out of business, or my people. Like, I never wanted them to ever worry about that day coming, right? I always wanted to be really, really financially stable, get really good at marketing. Marketing's a huge part of, if you take sales and marketing out of a dealership, it's pretty devastating. And also really closely monitor frontline ready units and your percentage of sell-through on frontline units, and control reconditioning versus frontline units, and watch that very close.
What
would you say? Good advice.
Give us your worst mistake. What do you feel like was a misstep? Because I want to hear that too. Because sometimes it's like, great, I would like to scale my cash and flooring at the same time. Like, give me a break. Of course. Like, I don't know how I'm going to freaking do that, you know, but maybe share with us a mistake that you made, and maybe something where you feel like you misstepped.
Buying a Fisker Karma. I still have it, actually. I actually, that is a real life scenario. I'm losing like 10 grand on it. But
I can say that about every Tesla I've bought.
All of us, right? We all went through that this last, I still have an X that I'm losing about 10 on. So I mean, that's the thing, is like, there's always going to be wins and there's always going to be losses. You're going to win. You just got to win more than you lose. Missteps. I'm trying to think of missteps. I think early on, thinking that I could do everything and I had to see through everything and I had to be involved in every process. I think like early on was like, it didn't set me up for a scale quite as good as we possibly could have. Slipping up on age units. I think I sometimes get way too comfortable with holding cars for way too long, because I maybe don't have a flooring pressure that's forcing me to pay cars off, which is definitely a mistake. I mean, you could always, I think volume and turn of units is so important now that gross, in my model, I know it's different when you're doing like buy here, pay here, but that's oftentimes, I think a mistake of mine is not controlling age of units as aggressively as I could, maybe getting lazy there. I don't know. I make mistakes every day, you know. I buy crappy cars all the time, but that just means I have to buy two, right? I have to average out that bad buy with a good one. You know,
there's so much good advice, Jason, that you've given our listeners, and it's the same thing that all of us have done, but to kind of get it out there so that new dealers maybe don't have those type of missteps. That's a good thing. We really appreciate you being here and talking to us today.
I could ask you questions for hours and hours,
all
Jason,
day.
so we won't keep you any longer. I know you got a lot to do, and we look forward to seeing you down at NI88. With the launch of Karketta, right? We'll all be in Vegas, in a week or two. So
awesome. Yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you guys for having me on here. I'm typically pretty introverted, so it's good to get out and talk.
Hard to tell.
Obligation. I'll come find you.
All right, bud.
Thanks, Jason. See ya.
Hey, thanks.
Dealers helping dealers. Please leave us a review and subscribe. The Independent Dealer Podcast.